Hello guys, today I will explain about metapotence, so let's start. Metapotence transcends the scale by which power is measured, and the concepts of power, weakness, and superiority fall within its domain of authority. It can determine the meaning of power, alter the conditions of superiority, and eliminate the very basis that makes comparison between two powers possible, therefore adding an infinite number of layers of power to its opponent would not solve the problem, because metapotence is presumed to have sovereignty over the hierarchy itself and over the principle of layering. Even if we assume the existence of an ontological hierarchy containing an unlimited number of levels of existence, with each level qualitatively transcending the level below it to the point where the lower world becomes merely fiction from the perspective of the higher one, and this progression continues infinitely. Metapotence does not depend on reaching the top of this hierarchy. Rather, it depends on the ability to control the very fact that this hierarchy exists and to redefine the ontological relationship that makes one level higher than another. It can even control the conditions and concepts that determine the nature of existence, abstraction, and transcendence. From the perspective of logic, the possessor of metapotence is not bound by classical logic, non-classical logic, or any possible logical system, because logic itself becomes something that can be subjected to and redefined. Therefore, the principle of non-contradiction, the principle of identity, the law of excluded middle, and the concepts of truth and falsehood, consistency and contradiction, are not ultimate limitations upon it. If something is said to be logically impossible, this does not constitute a barrier to metapotence, because its possessor does not need to make the impossible possible. Rather, they can remove the distinction between the possible and the impossible, or make the result true without needing to respect what previously described it as impossible. The same applies to causality. The entity does not need a cause in order to produce an effect, nor does it need to pass from a first state to a second state, nor does it need time for change to occur, because the relationship between cause and effect becomes subject to its authority. It can make an effect exist without a cause, make an effect precede its cause, remove the cause while retaining the effect, or make the concept of causality inapplicable to itself. At the level of modality, the matter goes beyond merely controlling possible worlds, because possibility, necessity, and impossibility themselves fall under its authority. It is not limited to the ability to actualize every possible world, but also includes making what was impossible possible, making what was possible necessary, making what was necessary impossible, or abolishing these classifications altogether. At the ontological level, its control goes deeper than merely erasing existing things. Existence and non-existence are two states whose meanings it can control. Conceptually, it can make something exist and not exist simultaneously, transcend the need to describe it as either, or redefine the meaning of existence, so that what was previously considered non-existence becomes a form of existence, and vice versa. Even conceptual erasure does not represent the end of its power, because the concepts of identity, death, life, time, space, number, infinity, truth, fiction, causality, possibility, necessity, existence, and non-existence all fall within its domain. Likewise, absolute resistance to abilities does not necessarily provide a solution against it, because resistance itself is an ability with conditions that determine what it can resist. While the possessor of metapotence can transcend the condition that gives resistance its meaning. If the opponent is immune to existence erasure, it can transcend the concepts of erasure and existence. If the opponent is immune to conceptual manipulation, it can transcend the system that determines what a concept is. If the opponent is immune to reality manipulation, it can change the meaning of reality. If the opponent exists outside causality, it can transcend the distinction between the causal and the acausal. If the opponent possesses resistance to all abilities, it can target the concepts of resistance, ability, and the relationship between them. Therefore, metapotence is a meta-principle that places all abilities, laws, resistances, classifications, and mathematics beneath the level of sovereignty represented by its possessor. Metapotence is the practical embodiment of omnipotence, with its essence being the ability to do anything and absolutely anything without requiring any explanation, justification, means, condition, or limitation. It is not an existential state, but power itself in its purest form, where it is sufficient for the user to will something to happen for it to become reality, regardless of how impossible, contradictory, or inconceivable it may be. The possessor of metapotence can achieve any result they desire, regardless of what it is, and does not require laws, logic, or even the concept of possibility. The phrase, "because they want it to happen," becomes the only answer to how any action performed by them occurs, independent of reason and logic. Therefore, the paradoxes of omnipotence do not apply to them, nor does any attempt to restrict them through rational rules. They possess all absolute, unrestricted, and complete abilities, can control, destroy, grant, or remove all powers, possess absolute freedom from all laws and limitations, and remain independent of everything,